slides shift. Here we go. And so we do want to acknowledge that Project Humanities and our institution, Arizona State University, is situated on the ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future. We very much thank and honor all of the Native American tribes and sovereign nations of the Salt River Valley. This includes the Acoma Otham, Onakama Otham, Pipash, and their stewardship of the lands and the waterways that very much allow us to be here now. And in addition, we honor their continued and many contributions today and well into the future. And so with this, I want to turn this over to our founding director, Dr. Neil Lester.
Thank you, Alicia, and welcome to all of you who have joined us for this special capstone event. Project Humanities is very excited to have just crossed our 10-year anniversary mark last year in 2021. And part of that anniversary friend-raising and fundraising involved creating what we have now as our undergraduate research ambassadors program. And the ambassador program was an opportunity, which is, you might think it's odd that it's rare for undergraduates to do research-based applied projects that consider and center a social justice issue of their choosing. And they will be under the mentorship, and we're under the mentorship of an ASU faculty member. So this was not a full year of working with Project Humanities and their mentors, but rather the spring semester, which was about June 22 to January through June 22. Each ambassador came up with their own topic. We did what we could to mentor them through process. Each of them demonstrated a certain kind of independence in thought and creativity, and I'm excited to see their final projects and to share them with you. So for the family members and friends of our 4 inaugural ambassadors, thank you for whatever you've done to contribute to their success. We at Project Humanities acknowledge that there is no success without collaboration. Tonight's format will be similar to our other programs. We'll have each ambassador present first, and then we'll go through the 4 presentations that should be about 10 minutes each. And then we'll have questions and observations from the audience. We will also be monitoring the chat. So if something pokes your interest, by all means, put it in the chat and we will address those to a specific ambassador or to all of the ambassadors as we go to the end of their presentation. So as we welcome one of our team members, Rachel, to come in and introduce our outstanding ambassadors. Let us know where you're joining us from. I forgot that. I always forget that. So let us know where you're joining us from. Rachel?
Oh, all right, great, thank you. So we're gonna do something slightly different in terms of our order of presenters. Due to some technical difficulties, we're gonna start with Emil Kumar. So I'll get you hooked up with finding out more about. Emil has just graduated from Arizona State University. He will attend law school and focus on studying issues related to social justice, such as immigration, housing, employment, and constitutional rights. In his free time, he likes to read nonfiction books about the humanities and social sciences and engage in freelance jobs to expand his skills in database management, communication, and professional writing. Welcome, Emil.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Appreciate it. Thank you to Dr. Lester, and I want to thank the Project Humanities organization for this opportunity. I'm very excited to present to you guys today. If you give me just a moment, I'll share my screen here. Perfect, and hopefully everyone can see. If you can't, please feel free to mention some in the chat. I'll get started. So yeah, like I said, my name is Emil Kumar. I'm an undergraduate researcher for Project Humanities, and the project that I decided to work on was mastery-based learning. Kind of the objective behind this study was to answer the following questions. Does mastery-based learning have the potential to transform the educational paradigm in Arizona and the United States in a positive manner that benefits students at all levels of their education? In other words, does mastery-based learning have the potential to change the way that we do education in the state of Arizona? Does it have the opportunity to change how things are done in the United States? And in a positive way too. This isn't simply a change in the way that education is done, but rather it's something beneficial for students at all points. So the research methods that I used for this project was that I conducted a focus group with 6 Arizona State University undergraduate freshmen. Participants were asked about their personal educational experiences, their perspectives on various aspects of mastery-based learning, such as correctives, peer-assisted learning, and repeated assessments, which I'll talk about in one of my items. I also did an interview with Mr. Peter Boyle, who's a director for educational leadership and innovation from the Center for the Future of Arizona. The analysis behind that was of Arizona House Bill 2862, which was actually the kind of inspiring source of information for this project, which introduces state-supported mastery-based learning for school districts and charter schools. So with the focus group, which was conducted with 6 Arizona State University undergraduate freshmen, kind of some of the things that I took from the focus group was that mastery-based learning assumes a certain type of student when it lays out the end product of its implementation. It assumes independently responsible students, educationally mature students who are equipped with all the time and tools necessary for school. That's at least the way that the legislation puts it out to be when they implemented mastery-based learning. Now, a lot of the aspects of mastery-based learning do already exist in some form today, such as flashcards, private tutoring, multimedia utilization, but they don't satisfy student demands for educational assistance. They're supplementary to the traditional systems of education that currently exist in society, but they're not representative of what students truly need. From my focus group, I learned a lot about how background variables in education, how they affect a student's journey. Home conditions like abusive and toxic families, lack of money for technological equipment, operational differences between public and private schools. There's a lot of different variables that play into how a student learns, and it's not just about how they teach at school, but rather the support system that exists at home. Teachers play a much larger role in the eyes of students than initially realized, even by myself. They're not just instructors, but they're tutors, they're supporters, and they're supposed to cater to a lot of different types of learning. Effective teachers would remove a lot of the issues that mastery-based learning seeks to solve. At the end of the day, we don't really need to implement a new system if we can change a few existing systems. And mastery-based learning is a little less about bringing a whole new style of teaching to schools, but amplifying aspects that are already understated and undeveloped. Like I mentioned in the first point, we're trying to change things that already exist and make them not complementary, but primary in form of education. My public policy analysis. So this comes back to Mr. Peter Boyle from the Center for the Future of Arizona. The center played a bit of a little less of a legislative and a sponsoring role and more of a consulting role when they were passing Arizona Bill 2862. They were discussing with members of the Arizona legislature as to what Arizonans considered was most important in their future legislature. They did the very important work of drawing from Arizona constituents to find out what the people themselves believe is important. And the potential implications for the state of education in Arizona appears to be limited to public institutions only. That goes kind of without saying, but obviously a lot of this legislature is exclusive to public institutions. Private institutions is something that, I could do a whole different talk on. In conclusion, from public policy, Arizona Bill 2862 isn't seeking to completely change the face of education in the state of Arizona. It's just adding flexibility to education so that everyone can get an equal chance. And I compiled all of my information from the focus group and from my interview with Mr. Peter Boyle into a podcast, which is kind of the main presentation that I created. And I made 3 podcasts. The first one was about concepts and experiences. So what mastery-based learning is and the experiences behind it. Podcast 2 focuses on the focus group that I conducted with the ASU freshmen, the expectations, the reality, what I walked in thinking would be possible, what these students ended up sharing with me. And podcast number 3 discussed the Center for the Future of Arizona and focused on a particular aspect of mastery-based learning that I really enjoyed called correctives. So my findings from this project of basically, my findings from this project basically is that this is a realistic goal for education in Arizona and the United States. If executed correctly, mastery-based learning is not something that has to be purely theoretical. It would transform the status quo of education. And for anyone who ends up listening to my podcast, you will see how a lot of the fundamental aspects of society and education that are put into place would completely transform with mastery-based learning. Mastery-based learning lacks enough constituent input in order to address all the current educational needs. While this project is focused on educational needs, it's an extremely important thing that we involve constituents in the conversation in any topic whatsoever, whether it's mastery-based learning, whether it's incarceration, whether it's healthcare. It's important that elected representatives are not the sole voice. And one of the things behind mastery-based learning is allowing constituents to have a role in how their society works. And at this point, mastery-based learning needs to be tested. Theory is no longer enough. At this point, it is time to take the theories that were developed 3-4 decades ago and start implementing them in schools and seeing whether this is a viable solution to education. And I'll break down a few of these a little bit. Realistic goals, it'll modify the existing state of education in a way that truly addresses the needs of students in Arizona without overturning decades of precedent. What that basically means is that mastery-based learning can change the system in a way that changes the status quo, but we don't have to throw away what we have been doing for decades and decades. In terms of the status quo, it will change it, absolutely. Big or small, there will be changes to the face of education, but it will do something extremely important that I don't think education really has done, whether in the state of Arizona or in the United States, and that's put the student at the forefront of how instruction and models of instruction are actually designed. Constituents will finally be included in the conversation. They will be able to tell me they will be able to tell legislators what they actually want out of their educational models, out of their educational instruction. An important thing from this project was the focus group, where I actually listened to students who were not so fresh out of high school that they couldn't, add their opinions to the conversation. It was extremely important to me that constituents, in this case, high school, middle school, elementary school students, got a say in how education would work for them. And like I said, and this is elaborated upon in my podcast, mastery-based learning has mostly existed theoretically. It's very prominent in academic discussions, very prominent in forums, but with the passing of Arizona House Bill 2862, the time for implementation is now. We have to ensure that mastery-based learning enters institutions as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible, so that we can get actual in-field knowledge of the model and learn things that we couldn't learn through dialogue or hypothesizing alone. It's a basic aspect of the scientific method that we need to see how this works in schools. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Emil. And we're going to hold off on questions for our presenters until everyone has gone. So now everybody join me in giving a warm welcome to our next presenter, Sayarchana Daraya. Sayarchana just graduated from Arizona State University with 3 majors in global management, social and cultural analysis, peace studies, and psychology, and a minor in sustainability. After college, she will pursue a career in fighting climate change. She hopes to help create a world where mental health is a less neglected topic in sustainable development and human rights spaces. Welcome, Sayarchana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So today I will be talking about refugees and mental health, specifically at ASU. So through this project, I researched the mental health of 61 refugees from Afghanistan who are women who just came to ASU a few months ago. And in this project, I conducted interviews and a survey about the current mental health struggles of these Afghan women at ASU. I also researched the existing resources for these women and refugees overall at ASU for mental health. And I also researched the gap in those resources and how to fill those gaps to support refugees at Arizona State University. So first off, I'm going to talk about the background. ASU welcomed 61 women who are refugees from Afghanistan. They were originally from the Asian University for Women in Bangladesh, and they were co-sponsored by ASU and the International Rescue Committee, and they came in December of 2021. So over the past 6 months, they've been integrating themselves into Arizona. They've been taking classes in English in order to become proficient in those English speaking skills in order to declare a major to pursue as either an undergrad or a grad at ASU. Over the course of the past 5 months, I've been working to understand what their struggles were in navigating this new country and also this new university. And something to keep in mind is 100% of the women I talk to have families still staying in Afghanistan. And the Taliban is still in Afghanistan. And one of their biggest worries is that their families could be hurt by the Taliban. And that worry is something that they go through every single day. And when it came to feeling a sense of connection and community, they mentioned that 60% of them mentioned that they feel lonely and haven't really made as much friends as they wanted at ASU since they moved in December. Something interesting to take note of is that while they do feel like they haven't made, about 60% of them feel like they haven't made enough friends at ASU, about 2/3 of them said that they still feel connected to the ASU community. And also when it came to the specific feelings that these Afghan women were experiencing while resettling at ASU, these were the top 3 struggles that they went through with their mental health. 80% of them indicated that they experienced stress, especially relating to academics when integrating in this new country. 70% of them indicated that one of the biggest things that they went through was confusion, especially confusion in navigating this new culture and this new environment. And 60% of them indicated that they go through loneliness, including missing their family and their friends and navigating this whole new country without feeling a sense of connection towards people around them. When it came to what resources for mental health that helped them the most, I created a survey and asked them to check mark every resource that helped them. And these were the resources that helped them the most. And it's interesting to note that most of these resources that they indicated that helped them the most was active mental health resources, including yoga, exercising, traveling, and the resources that they indicated having the least amount of impact on their mental health were these resources, including presentations from ASU, ASU counseling, and ASU clubs. And something to take note of that they indicated to me is that they felt a lot of confusion when navigating resources from ASU, including ASU counseling, which seemed very foreign and something that was very new to them, and also ASU clubs. And they experienced a lot of confusion in understanding those resources and how to access those resources from ASU. Additional feedback that I received from them is that they struggled with their academics because at ASU, you need to have a declared major in order to have an academic advisor. And because none of these women had a declared major yet, they had to navigate their academics and understanding what major to pursue without having a designated academic advisor, which caused a lot of stress for them. And they also were unaware of certain resources from ASU, including the Sunday Fitness Center, complimentary classes for mental health and well-being, and also ASU counseling systems. And they also indicated that they felt like the value-wise services which they received, which was healthcare services that they received from Arizona overall, didn't really cover mental health as much in those services. So when I discovered that there was a lack of understanding of existing resources at ASU, I did community mapping. This slide just covers some of the resources I discovered at ASU that can support the mental health of refugees overall. These resources include ASU organizations that work specifically on the experiences of refugees, both at ASU and in the Arizona area overall. There's also departments that focus on mental health, including the ASU Center for Mindfulness and ASU counseling services, and also departments that focus on the experiences of international students. There's also organizations at ASU that focus solely on mental health of students that go to ASU, which are listed here. And also there's student coalitions that focus on advocating for the rights, the experiences, and the well-being of specific groups at ASU, including cultural groups such as the Asian Coalition, the Coalition for International Students, and the Women's Coalition. And actually the Women's Coalition did a lot of work with Afghan women this semester to support them. There's also safe spaces at ASU for specific cultural groups. There's a multicultural space that can be a safe space for refugees to go to on the Tempe campus. And there's also rooms for mindfulness, mental health, reflection, and prayer on the Tempe campus. So in this process of discovering current resources to support the mental health of refugees at ASU, I discovered that there are gaps in these resources. these gaps included ASU's records. So ASU has no way of keeping record of who is a refugee and who's not a refugee, meaning that it is so easy for refugees to fall through the cracks if they're not sponsored by ASU and if ASU is not aware of their existence. So with the 61 refugee women that I worked with this semester, ASU sponsored them, meaning that ASU was aware of their existence and ASU could work with them directly to provide them resources and support. But overall, ASU has no way of keeping track of how many of its students are refugees. When people apply to ASU in the application process, they can indicate if they're a veteran, they can indicate if they have disabilities, they can indicate if they're an international student, but there's no indicator if they are a refugee student. And one of the things I want to work on is making sure that ASU can include an optional indicator in their application process for students who apply to indicate if they are refugees, so that ASU can be aware of how many of its students are refugees and how ASU can support them, especially because ASU is the #1 public university in the world for international students, and meaning that there's a whole group of refugees that exist at ASU that ASU has no idea about from all these different countries. And I think it's so important that ASU is aware of them so that ASU can support them. Also, when it comes to ASU counseling, I think it's very important that all new counselors that are onboarded get formally trained on how to be culturally competent in supporting refugee students at ASU. And also, I think it's very important that the counseling intake form has an indicator question that's optional for a student to indicate if they are a refugee or not, because in this indicator form, students can indicate if they're veterans, if they have disabilities, and all these other factors that can affect their mental health, but there's no question about their refugee status. And I think that there should be. And also, like I mentioned previously, I think there is no current way of addressing supporting the academics and the struggles of academics with the refugees that are at ASU if they have not declared a major. So there needs to be some sort of academic advisors that exist for students that are refugees, even if they have not declared a major yet. And also there was a lack of awareness of the current resources at ASU, and I worked to address that lack of awareness with mental health resources specifically through my community mapping. And then there also needs to be safe spaces across campuses at ASU. As of right now, most of the main safe spaces are in the Tempe campus. And refugees not only live and go to school on the Tempe campus, they also go to the other 4 campuses at ASU, and creating more safe spaces culturally and for the mental health of students overall in general is something that I hope to see from ASU. So when it comes to the solutions to fill these gaps, there are 6 solutions I wanted to cover. Like I mentioned before, it's really important that ASU has a way of recording who is a refugee and who is not a refugee if a student chooses to reveal that information to them. It's also important that ASU provides formalized training for its staff that work with refugees on how to support refugees. And this training needs to be based on cultural competency around trauma informed support and supporting the overall journey of refugees at ASU. Another thing I hope to see from ASU is creating a specific department that works specifically with students that are refugees in order to advocate for them, to advocate for policies and resources, and to better understand what their struggles are. What I envision for this department or coalition is that administrators, student leaders, and refugees can all collaborate together to understand and to implement policies and initiatives to support and improve the well-being of refugees at ASU. That way, current refugee students have a way to directly talk to administrators, and also student leaders who work with refugees can work with all these different populations and groups of people to create policies that can support and better the experience of refugees at ASU. Also, I hope to see more academic advisors, like I mentioned previously, that can support especially new refugees at ASU, even if they have not declared a specific academic major. I hope to see more safe spaces, and most importantly, I hope to see more designated people at ASU that ASU can hire to support the experiences of refugees. I hope to see more student workers and student employees and more administrators that work specifically on improving the experiences of refugees at ASU. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Great, thank you so much, Nayochina. So just as a reminder again, we're going to leave questions until the very end. So join me now in welcoming our next presenter. Our next presenter is Mackenzie Lane. Mackenzie is going into her senior year at ASU and is on track to graduate in May of 2023. She's been working in the social services field for 2.5 years now and is currently working at a residential treatment facility and is completing a fellowship with the Office of Gender-Based Violence at ASU. Mackenzie plans to become a victim advocate once she graduates. Welcome, Mackenzie. Oh, can't hear you.
There we go. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I just want to thank everybody for coming and thank everybody for their time really quick while I get that set up. Okay, awesome. So my, like she said, my name is Mackenzie Lane. My project is about analyzing burnout among women during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I really just want to take a second to give a shout out to my amazing advisor, Professor Karen. She doesn't like people saying her last name, so I'm just going to leave it at Professor Karen. She's been an incredible support, and I also really want to thank the Project Humanities team because they've been amazing so far in this project. So I first want to just go to the basic of what's going on here. What is burnout? So since 1970s, burnout has been a term that is used to describe this state that's characterized by emotional exhaustion, feelings of cynicism, and reduced personal accomplishment. So that's not all that burnout is. I feel like burnout is significantly bigger than that. It's much more complex, and there are a lot more feelings surrounding burnout, but I feel like that is the best way to simply put what burnout is. What I specifically focused on is occupational burnout. So I specifically focused on burnout among what you're doing and not burnout personally, because I feel like there is personal burnout and then occupational burnout. Occupational burnout is what the original burnout term was created to describe. So yeah. So for my research project, I was asking the question, how has COVID-19 impacted burnout among women? I knew that COVID-19 impacted women as it did men, and I knew that COVID-19 impacted burnout, but I wanted to specifically look at how it impacted burnout among women due to specific factors that women go through and have been going through due to the pandemic that are gender specific. So for my project, what I did was I specifically targeted women in helping professions. I was able to reach a pretty broad spectrum of women. I was able to reach teachers, law enforcement, social workers, nurses, and I actually included students in this research study because I felt like they had a voice that needed to be heard as well. And in the process of getting all of those different people, I ended up getting some other types of people. I got a law clerk, an HR professional, so a bunch of people in the helping professions, or just people in general, some women in general. I was also able to reach a broad spectrum of different type of people. I was able to reach a bunch of different races, specifically 7 races and ethnicities, and I was able to reach 4 different economic classes. So I was able to get a snapshot of the true spread of what was going on among women, or at least that's what I feel like. I used a very short survey that was specifically created to target aspects of burnout, including financial strain, job satisfaction, job efficacy, and job manageability. And I sent that survey out, and over about 2 to 3 months, I was able to collect a pretty good chunk of data that led me to getting some really cool results. So this is just the starting point of my results. I actually found a ton more, but I really wanted to keep it short and not overwhelm. But I think, as you can see, I got some high numbers. So 85.7% of respondents were, 87 or 85.7% of respondents reported experiencing burnout during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the vast majority of my respondents actually had experienced burnout during the pandemic specifically. 71.5% of respondents reported neutral to low satisfaction with their current wage, which, as I said, was a factor of burnout. 61.9% of respondents reported feeling effective in their job and occupation, which is a very good thing. We want people to feel effective because efficacy, again, is another part of burnout. 71.4% of respondents reported high daily pressure that had been added during the COVID-19 pandemic. So people were feeling more pressure, which is also another part of burnout. 76.1% of respondents reported neutral to low feelings of support by leadership. 90.4% of respondents reported neutral to low feelings of prevention for burnout by their leadership. And 71.4% of respondents reported feeling unsafe or safety fears affecting them during the COVID-19 pandemic. I also wanted to allow women to feel that they had a place to express their experiences. So I left a part in my survey where women could leave a note if they felt so inclined. And there were a few quotes that I felt were very important to share. One of the women stated that she said, "Many of my colleagues feel the same way and are leaving the profession entirely as a result. I am leaving the classroom in June." She was a teacher, or is a teacher. The next one says, "The hardest part for me was working from home and having a kindergartner doing online school from home. It was hard to find the balance, being a mom, a teacher, a detective, all at the same time." That was my law enforcement officer. And then I think this was a teacher actually, who said, "I experienced my first burnout during COVID and it led me to seeking therapy for the first time in my life." So why is this important? Why did I do this? Why did I just spend 6 months of my life wanting to research this? I think that my data confirms, not necessarily proves, but it confirms what we already knew, that women are experiencing burnout in a very, very huge way. Like I said, I knew that women were experiencing burnout. I just didn't know how COVID had affected it. But my data confirms that women are experiencing burnout. My data also was able to show that women are not feeling supported by leadership in regards to their burnout, which I feel like is very important, as this is how we can change and be more supportive for all, not necessarily just women, not necessarily just minority women or minorities at all. I feel like it's important that we make sure that we're supporting those that we lead. And then I just felt like it was important to note that I feel that policy and practice are changing with the times, but they need to continue to change with the times. So we all know that policy and practice have all changed with COVID-19, but now they're not changing continuously as the pandemic is changing. And I feel like the policy and practice needs to continue to change to prevent more and worsening burnout. To present all of my data, I actually ended up creating a website with some help by a very good friend who's very talented, but he taught me everything that I know about web development, and I was able to create this, what I hope is a hub about about my research, and that can be used as a tool to educate and move forward to start the conversation about burnout or continue the conversation about burnout. What I've noticed personally is that there is some conversation that's been going on, but not enough conversation that's been going on. So I hope that this can be a tool or a guide to help continue that conversation. Thank you. That's all that I have.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie. All right, and again, just another reminder, we're gonna go ahead and keep on going through until our final presenter is finished. And our final presenter is Yvonne Quintana. Yvonne was born and raised in a small town in Chihuahua, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States at the age of 18. He has experienced firsthand the impact that education has on families and their economic mobility, and is passionate about improving educational opportunities and outcomes from others. He aspires to be a cross-sector leader that can unite people and organizations towards developing sustainable and community-driven solutions to educational and economic issues. Welcome, Yvonne.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. We can hear you.
Thank you for that. So thank you so much, Dr. Lester. I was just having some issues with my earlier, so I want to make sure that wasn't a problem. All right, so my research focused on the experience and perceptions of African American and Latinx males about post-secondary education. And I'll tell you a little bit about why this issue is important to me. So this is a picture of myself, as well as my two brothers, Edgar and Rudy. Both of my parents, they only completed the equivalent of an 8th grade education, and they sacrificed a lot to make sure that we had opportunities. So this last spring, I was the final child that graduated from college. The person on the left is my brother Edgar, and he's on here, and hopefully he doesn't mind that I make a joke at the expense of his age. That's actually a picture of his high school graduation. He graduated from college in 2004, and digital cameras were not so mainstream back then, so he wasn't able to find a picture. And then my brother on the right is Rudy, who graduated in 2008, both from the University of Texas El Paso. So seeing them graduate at a very young age had a huge impact on me. I would also like to thank my faculty advisor, Dr. Angel Molina Jr., who completed his undergrad degree as well as his master's at the University of Texas El Paso, UTEP. So this project has a lot of minor connections. This issue became really interesting to me because, I served an AmeriCorps term in an early college program. And when I was hired on, what they told me was, we're very excited to have a Latino male to do the presentations and the recruiting for the students, because we're seeing that a lot of the students aren't participating in this summer program. A lot of male students wouldn't even apply. And just to kind of give you a small breakdown, in that program, we served around 40 students every summer. About 6 or 7 of those would be male students in the whole program. And so that's kind of what got me thinking, as why am I seeing this gap? And initially, I began to do some research and discovered that in the 1970s, college enrollment was comprised of 60% males and 40% female students. And then today, that figure is sort of inverted. So today, women comprise 60% of college enrollment, and men only comprise 40%. What this issue poses is that we are seeing a lot of male students not being able to go to college and graduate. And I do understand that the college education doesn't guarantee that you'll be rich or that you'll escape poverty, but it does grant you some opportunities. An interesting sort of byproduct of this issue that is happening right now in colleges and universities is that it's making college admissions more difficult for female students, because colleges are actually prioritizing male applicants to make sure that the percentage of the students on their campus is sort of relatively closer to each other, so that this gap that we're seeing doesn't exist. So they're actually prioritizing male applicants over female students in a lot of cases, because they're just not seeing the same number of applicants coming through as before. This problem, goes as far back as with the research that I did as far as 2005. The Department of Education was already looking at this issue, and I thought it was more of a recent problem, but it's becoming definitely a lot more mainstream. And what we see is that COVID exacerbated the problem. So this is a snapshot from spring 2020 to spring 2021. And across the board, we saw an 8.9 decrease in male college enrollment across the country. And the highest populations that experienced decrease in enrollment were African American men in college at 14.3% and Latino men at 12.6%. So I, with the guidance of my faculty advisor, I kind of looked at what research already existed to make sure that I was getting some initial context and answers, and I wasn't going to ask the students that in my surveys the same thing that's already been discovered. So what we discovered is that the influence of college counselors is really important to whether a male student of color sees a college as a viable option. They're negatively impacted by low expectations, inaccurate information, or preferential treatment. What they mean by preferential treatment is that they see other students feel like they are college material, and then the counselor sort of places a lot of attention and focus on those students, and then they don't receive in turn that same attention. The expectations of teachers and administrators is also crucial. A lot of Black and Latino students felt that they were labeled as troublemakers by their teachers and administrators because they had disciplinary issues on campus, or they were not performing well academically. Black students also expressed that they experienced microaggressions from their instructors and were also belittled or ridiculed in class. And then also looking at how the familial attitudes that are an impact on a student's college going mindset. I shared my story a little bit so you can see how my family's attitude really shaped my perception of college. So I wanted to see how that was sort of replicating itself across different parts of the nation. For many male students of color, they have responsibilities that ties them to the home and makes them sort of a resource that just can't leave the household. So a lot of them is really begin their higher education journey at a local community college, as opposed to going out of state because their family needs them either to contribute financially to the household or just to sort of serve as a parental figure in that household. Parents want to be involved in the college going process. So a lot of research dispels a myth that sometimes gets repeated in schools that Black and brown families don't want to be engaged with their child's education. And that's actually simply not true. There's a lot of research that debunks that. As far as the survey and the approach that I wanted to take, I asked sort of the demographic information to see if the students did identify as Latinx or African American, if the student has immediate family like siblings or extended family in college, because in a lot of the articles, something that popped up a lot was that when students didn't feel comfortable asking their counselor questions about college, they would typically get that information from a cousin or an older sibling that was already going to college. I asked them about the expectations that their family had on them, the perceptions of whether or not their teachers expected them to go to college, their level of comfort speaking to a college counselor, and familiarity with college admissions process. Overall, the survey results demonstrated that students have familiarity with college admissions and they felt comfortable asking their counselors questions about college. I did not get a super strong response. I only had about 12 respondents in the survey, so I don't want to say that that is a appropriate sample size that gives me a good representation of what's going on in the state of Arizona, but the responses do fall in line with a lot of the other research that's happening around the country. The expectations of the family, typically their parents wanted them to go to college. One thing that they did feel like they disagreed was that their teachers did not communicate often with their parents or guardians about how well they were doing in school in regards to whether they were scoring low in the class or high in the class. And it was pretty even as far as whether the students felt encouraged that their parents want them to take advantage of academic opportunities in school. Financial obligations. This one, the focus was seeing if the students felt that they needed to contribute financially to their family. So when I asked that question in the survey, the overwhelming response was maybe, being that and I'll get to that a little bit later, why that answer is more likely maybe. When it came to asking them if at any point they had to support their family financially in college, as you can see, the overwhelming majority responded that they would go to school part-time and work part-time. And to me, this was an indicator of the previous research, right? Where male students feel like they need to provide financially in the household if that's a requirement that they feel they must complete. So talking about policy implications and future directions, it's important for colleges to improve their outreach and retention efforts targeting male students of color, especially in community colleges. a lot of male students of color feel like they go to community college first, again, not only for being close to their family, but because if they need to work, they provide flexible schedules, and it's usually cheaper than attending a four-year institution. At the same time, there's also research that was produced specifically focusing on Latino male students, that them attending early college gives them a sense of confidence and a lot of knowledge to be able to take dual enrollment classes, for example, in high school, and that increases their chances of then either transferring to that community college or continuing to a four-year institution. A lot of the male students that feel like they can go to college and they should go to college often don't have a sense of direction on why. They just know, I feel like I need to go to college, but I don't understand what I want to study, or I have a sense of purpose with what I want to do in my career. Partnerships between high school districts and post-secondary institutions, specifically targeting male students of color and their families. An example that I gave is a Sunnyside Cats program, which is a partnership between the Sunnyside High School District and the University of Arizona in Tucson, where they received a funding from the Department of Education to increase underrepresented communities entering the STEM fields. So this program is held typically after hours and on weekends to make sure that the parents are part of the college going process of the student. One thing that surprised me, because I attended a presentation by the Director of Hispanic Serving Initiatives at U of A, was that there were families that lived generations walking distance from the University of Arizona campus. And this was the first time that they stepped on campus. And I'm talking like they would say things like, yeah, my family has lived here since like the 50s. And this is the first time that I've been at the U of A campus, which shows that, again, that our institutions are sometimes very intimidating and not very welcoming to their community around them. It's also important at the state level to increase the representation of college counselors across the state of Arizona. In 2019, Arizona made headlines because they had caseloads of up to 900 students per one counselor. Looking at a public report of the Department of Education, you can see this huge breakdown, right? There's only 304 male guidance counselors in context of over 1,300 female guidance counselors. There's only 27 Black male counselors in the entire state. It's very important for students to feel like they can relate to the people in these positions and to see themselves, right? A lot of times these people are role models or even father figures, and we're missing a lot of those potential connections just because of this trend that we see occurring. And activating the community. What I really liked about this research project is that it goes far beyond a paper or a presentation. So I'm excited to share that this summer I will collaborate with the Agua Fria High School District and their newly founded support specialist team on training them to effectively support male students of color in their post-secondary education. I was very flattered that when I spoke to the person at the district, I told them I'm not a subject matter expert, but they told me, you know what, even the knowledge that you have is something that I think we could use here. So that was very nice of them to say. And I'll also be working with the Mesa Community early college programs, and I think the director might be in the audience, to retain male students of color participating in early college programs and find ways so that we can keep them engaged and hopefully get them to transfer once they're done with their early college programs. Thank you everyone for your time and for being here this afternoon.
Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. Well, let's give all of our ambassadors a round of applause for that impressive work. And I want to make sure that there are opportunities for our audience members to at least make some observations. But I want to start by asking the ambassadors' mentors. I think I saw some of your names out there. Do we have all of the mentors present tonight? Do we have all the mentors present tonight? Can you tell? Let's see, we've got, are your respective mentors present? Okay, so I'm going to ask them to, if they would just say hello and introduce themselves for 30 seconds so that they can tell you which ones worked with which of you. So who wants to start? There are 4 mentors for 4 ambassadors. So give us a 30-minute intro of who you are and who you worked with. Don't be shy.
I'll go ahead and start if that's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Dr. Angel Molina I'm an assistant professor in the School of Public Affairs here in ASU downtown. I've been with our faculty for a few years now, but I want to say that this has been one of the most rewarding experiences. Yeah, I'm really proud of Yvonne's work, and I want to say that all of the projects that I've seen tonight have been extremely inspiring and really reinvigorating, especially where we're still in this really sort of modified, stressful world. But all of these projects are really inspiring, and I think they engage with really important topics. And I hope that everyone keeps moving forward, not just with the research component, but thinking about how what they're doing from a scholarly perspective can generate positive impact for the groups in question, right?
Thank you.
So thank you all again.
Yeah, and feel free to turn your to unmute your video so we can see you if you feel comfortable doing that, because we'd like to make sure.
How do I do that?
Rachel, can you do that?
Yeah, I just have to promote you to panelists. So.
Okay. Sorry about
there
the
you go.
complexity there. We just want people to see you so that we can acknowledge you as well as your mentee there. All right. Let's see. Did you show up? All right, there we are. Thank you, Professor Molina. Yes, all right, there we go. So if you'll promote the others too. So who would like to go next? Thank you. Professor DeLargy.
Okay, I can go. I had the distinct honor and pleasure of working with Sarchana on her project and research on mental health for refugees. I am professor of practice in the School of Politics and Global Studies and the director of ASU's Initiative on Refugee Education, which is called Education for Humanity, which works throughout the world actually in support for refugees, and was delighted that Sarchana wanted to do this research, because although ASU's initiative does a lot on education for refugees in other places, we weren't doing what we should be doing at ASU. And her research has made very specific observations and recommendations that we now can run with. So it's been a pleasure to work with her. And it's been a pleasure also to watch the progress of the other three ambassadors too, because every topic is really, really pertinent and important right now.
Thank you, Professor DeLargy.
I'll go next. I'm Karen Kataw. I'm with the School of Social Work. I am the program coordinator for social work on West Campus, and I have been working with Mackenzie Lane and have really enjoyed working with her on this. It's such a great topic, and burnout is a big thing. So it really, I think, affected a lot of people with COVID. But I thoroughly enjoyed all four of the presentations. You guys did an amazing job. I am just astounded at the research you did. So yes, great job.
All right, that leaves one more.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gregory Broberg. I'm a professor in the School of Social Transformation, and my colleague Emil Kumar did an amazing job in understanding mastery-based learning changes that are going on in place in Arizona. I think we all could agree that education is definitely in flux right now, and he uncovered many of the issues that face students. This was a student-facing project, so I thought he did an amazing job. I was with teachers today in Tempe Union High School District, and you certainly can see we have challenges in our K-12 arena, as we do at ASU as well too. And so Emil's work will be able to take forward some of those things and hopefully change for the better. So we're always looking at that, and I want to congratulate the other students. It's always amazing to see their work. We're very proud of all the work you guys have done, and you're gonna make us prouder as you move forward into your alumni status. And just remember, we're always here for you, and you can always come back home. That's what I always tell students.
See, this really does feel like a graduation speech moment because there is. So I do want to make sure, thank you so much, mentors, and thank you for coming tonight. One of the things I want to say is that there are not very many, and I've been at ASU for 25 plus years, and I have seen lots of opportunities for graduate students to showcase their research. there are not many that allow this kind of research. Typically the ones that I've been involved with, I've had students who were helping me with my research, but that was not what we were doing here. These students were not assisting a faculty member with their research. The faculty member was assisting the students with their research. We did not give them topics. They came up with that. We did not modify them. But I would like to ask, as my team is looking through the questions and observations, and this could be for any of you, what aspects of your respective projects surprised you or shifted your initial thinking as you walk through this over the past few weeks and months? So which aspect or aspects of your project sort of surprised you or shifted?
I could take that first one. I walked in with a certain set of expectations for sure. There was definitely, so mine was the education project. I definitely walked in with a belief that the way I see this is the way that everyone else will see it. Doing the focus group really alerted me to the fact that while some people do agree with me, some people don't agree with me. And it ties back into the whole thing of constituents need to have their opinions voiced, and we shouldn't assume that we know what we're talking about just because we're representing them.
Anyone else? Thank you, Emil. Anyone else? Okay, Sarachana.
I guess what surprised me in my project was how Arizona is definitely a place where a lot of refugees go to resettle, including from Bosnia, Sudanese refugees, Somali refugees, and Congolese refugees. Yeah, ASU has no way of keeping track of all of its refugee populations. And I guess the population I worked with from Afghanistan, ASU was aware of. And I guess what surprised me was how easy it can be for refugees to fall through the cracks if ASU isn't aware of them. That definitely surprised me. And I guess it also is something I hope to kind of work to fix. Something I do want to do is like to write a letter to Dr. Michael Crow and suggest some sort of way to support refugees beyond just the refugees that ASU sponsors by keeping a record of them and other parts of my project that I hope to see implemented there.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Sarachana, I know that you had to sort of work to build trust with those refugees. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you did to sort of facilitate that?
Definitely. So coming to a new country after going through something incredibly traumatizing of, like, for example, the Taliban coming and invading Afghanistan and them worrying about their families, definitely caused a lot of like trauma and grief and lack of trust. And something that is very important to me as someone who studies psychology and someone who has done work in mental health is just to provide a safe space for them to open up about their grief and their trauma. So something I also wanted to do to provide a safe space was just to become their friends, to spend time with them outside of just researching with them so that they knew that like my role in their life wasn't just to research what they're going through, but also just be a friend and a supporter in what they're going through. And I think providing a safe space for people goes beyond just saying, I'm here for you, but also showing that and being a friend and a guide. So that's something I definitely worked to build with them. So yeah, I very much enjoyed doing that.
Well,
and I've made lifelong friends through this process with them. So it's been amazing.
I asked that question because I know that there was some stuff that we worked through because you were so passionate about your commitment that at times it felt like you were going to be the gap rather than providing the mapping of the gaps that were there. And so I wondered if anybody else had any kind of evolutions or thinking. Mackenzie, you said in yours that you sort of suspected this anyway, but it just confirmed what you thought. Did you have any sort of aha moments as you were doing this, McKinney, that you can share with us?
Definitely. I knew a lot. Well, that sounds really high-headed, but I knew a lot about burnout just because it was something that I've been very passionate about for many years. And after doing a lot of research at the beginning of this project, I kind of knew what I was getting into and like what I was going to get out of it. But honestly, I was more confirmed by my results than surprised. I've said that before, and I'll say it until the end of time. I kind of knew what was coming, and it really just confirmed that there needs to be some sort of change.
Thank you for clarifying that, because not everything is a discovery. Sometimes it's like, I know it's there, but I need some sort of evidence that will sort of show me that, yes, what I knew is there really is there, at least with this. And I know that you had some challenges trying to actually find people too with the whole
Yeah,
surveying. So you ended up with a decent pool of
we
folks to get
did.
those perspectives. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And let's see, the other question, Jocelyn or anybody from our team, are there questions or observations that are in the chat that we need to acknowledge before going on to
Yes, founder Miguel Fernandez has a question specific to Ivan. Miguel, do you want to, I can unmute you and start your video if you like?
Yes, let's do that, since we're among family. We're a small, intimate group here.
All right, give me just 1 second.
Yeah, and Miguel is one of our Humanity 101 founders. That means that not only does he devote his time and talent, but he's also invested in Project Humanities and is professor at Chandler Gilbert. Yes.
All right, can you hear me? I've been promoted.
We can hear you. We can hear you and see you, founder.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. And excellent job, researchers. I mean, the questions that I've got written down here that come from your research are stuff that's going to endure and be useful. So again, this was not just a project for you guys. I think this is real useful research from the audience side. I love this stuff. So thank you. And thank you, Project Humanities, for doing this. So Ivan, my question is this. So we're looking at the same issue, male population, but in general, Hispanic population and all this stuff. And one of the things we see, especially with first generation, is that disconnect of parents. They don't know what college is for. And they hear different things, especially now you hear, oh, well, college is about debt. It's not a pathway, or all these differences. So one of the ideas that I'm considering and doing for fall is parents' office hours, just general open hours or YouTube videos so that they can see it at whatever time, where they can ask any kind of questions in English or Spanish. And I'll have specifically day hours and evening hours, because we tried that with nurses. So this goes back to the health and burnout. So I have nursing students in my English 101 and 102, and it was hugely helpful to have office hours in the evening at 11 p.m. once a week. So I'm thinking this might be great for parents. So I'm wondering, from your research and your experience, what kind of communication methods would be best? Should it be email, in person, a YouTube video? What do you think would work best with that population? Because again, it's first generation, so I don't want to presume I know, even though I'm first generation too, what would work best. Any ideas?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in my research, a very common topic that came up is that, especially with Latinx students, they don't like to be translators. So definitely a great idea making sure that the parents have access to the information. A strategy that I have come across that is actually being implemented, I can't remember which high school district in the Phoenix metro area, is they're having what are called cafecitos, which are basically, you invite the parents and the students to sort of go and have a coffee with you. And that makes it sort of a little bit more, it reduces that intimidation factor that you brought up early, which is, campuses aren't always very welcoming or friendly to them. And I think, you mentioned you have the challenging of navigating FERPA, right? Which is that you can't, at that point, if the parent is not listed as under the FERPA for the student, you can release things like grades or comments or their assignments. So absolutely, just make sure that the parents, if you explain it to them, because I know that's an issue that you have to sort of tackle when you have an early college program, is that the student's already a student at the college level, even though they're 15, and FERPA comes into play. But something that just makes, and kind of using Sayachin as example, building trust, that goes a long way, I think. And when you bring the student and the parent together, ideally, hopefully, I think that you can explain to them why you can't explain certain things and have a good conversation with them.
Thank you. Thank you. I love to see how you're so supportive of each other. You're great cheerleaders for each other. I like that, and that's why it's nice to have a cohort of folks who have different projects, but you're also learning. And I know some mentors were doing that as well. I'm wondering if you might share, and this doesn't have to go to any one person, what did you learn most about the research process? we talked a little bit about, and you've shared about the product. Let's reflect some on the process of doing this. What did you learn about process in doing this? Who wants to take that one? Is that question too like, because okay, thank you.
I could feel it. So for me, something that was a challenge was something that actually also came across the research, which was the future questions was, and I think Emil probably can also relate to this a little bit because you interviewed adults, was there's always, I was trying to interview a sample size of students that were in 7th to 12th grade. And so I came across the challenge that with one school district, I won't name it, every other teacher, when I would email them, they said, yeah, I'll try to get it to my students. But that school district basically said, if you want to do the survey, you will have to present your sort of the research question and the survey in front of a committee, and they'll review it. And that was like a 3 to 4 month process, and that didn't allow me to even push that survey in that school. So something that I did not know was the difficulty of working with minors in research, which is what creates, not only for me, but all the other research that I saw, was a lot of the research was done on students that were already in college or were already adults, reflecting back on their middle school experience and high school experiences to get at the research.
Mm-hmm. Well, and part of research, as you know, and many of us who have done, and you raised your hand there, is that there are often detours that if you sort of know the answer, then it may not be worth doing, but also being open to the possibility that you may have to go in a different direction than where you actually started. Emil.
Yvonne is 100% right. The original idea behind my project was to talk to current high schoolers. There's a lot of red tape you have to go through. There's a lot of different people that you have to, get approval from, administrators, parents. You obviously don't want to make students feel uncomfortable as well, because like I said, this idea of letting constituents actually participate in the process of making, rules and decisions is something they're not used to. And if, a random college student shows up and starts asking them questions, it's always in the back of their head of, what's going on? Like, why are we suddenly involved in the process out of nowhere? And it was too many variables, and I never ended up being able to talk to high school students or anyone who was under the age of 18. So when I was in the process of recruiting, I ended up going with, like I said, ASU freshmen, because I was able to talk to them without too much red tape, and I was able to garner the most recent experiences. So, Yvonne, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. What? Did anybody else want to comment on that?
I guess what was really cool for me was seeing my project evolve. And originally, when I first did it, I wanted to just study the mental health struggles of refugees from Afghanistan. But then I realized that there are so many gaps in these resources at ASU, and that caused me to expand my project more and look at different methodologies for research, including community mapping, surveying, qualitative work such as focus groups. And it was really cool, like navigating one topic using such different methodologies to understand it from such a very broad perspective, and understanding all these different, very interconnected parts of the overall topic of the mental health of refugees at ASU. And community mapping was definitely something I've never done before, and it was very exciting and very cool to communicate with these organizations that support refugees and understand what ASU can be doing more to support refugees. So it was really cool looking at those different methodologies.
So, Archana, I have a question for you that's specific to your content. None of the refugee women, are they unmarried? Are they not parents? And would you expect that this might be different for refugee men?
Definitely. I know I worked specifically with refugee women. Most of them were in their 20s. Some of them did have spouses or partners that were in other parts of the world, which also caused loneliness and things like that. And I definitely think that the results might have been different if they were men. I know the refugees I worked specifically with were from the Asian University for Women from Bangladesh. And of course, every single sort of population goes through unique struggles. And I think they also had to navigate navigate this new country as a woman and navigating different cultural things too. So I definitely think it would have been different if I had worked with even refugees from another country or refugees that were from different genders, different ages. I think something that they also had to navigate was growing up and adulting while also being a refugee and in their 20s. I think that was especially something that was a struggle.
Well, and thank you for clarifying that. So I didn't mean unmarried, I meant partnered in any way that they are partnered. Questions? Does an ambassador have a question for one of the other ambassadors while we're waiting to see if there's anything in the chat beyond Professor Fernandez? Did you have questions for each other?
I think all of us changed the way that our project was executed over time. My project is not what I thought it would originally be. I'm happy with it, but it's not what I thought it would be. And it wasn't executed the way I thought it would be. And I didn't use the resources that I thought I would use. And one of the reasons was because this was a 6-month adventure. Like, we had spring semester to pull this off. If you had more time, what would you have attempted to add to your project? Or how would you have executed this differently? Personally, I would have gone through the red tape of high schoolers, and the podcast would have been longer, and I would have gained more input from legislators and sponsors. So that's me. What about you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and answer that one. That is my least favorite question, because I have thought this over like a cajillion times. Like, what would I have done differently? And the project would have been so different. The project would have been completely different, because hindsight is 2020. And I feel like you guys did amazing. And I feel like I'm so proud of the project that I've put out. And I'm trying to stay in that mindset of like, I'm so proud of this project that I put out, because would I change things? Yes, I changed so many things. But I think I'm trying to stay really proud of what I've put out. So a million things. To answer your question, I would change a million things, but hindsight's 2020.
Right. Yes. We actually got a question, so I'll let some of my team members answer that before I launch into that. Rachel or Jocelyn?
Yeah, so I really liked the question that Dr. Delargy asked, which is...
Do you want to bring your video on, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
So Dr. Delargy asked, what lessons did you all learn from this first year of the initiative? Oh, this is the question for the Project Humanities team. I misinterpreted your question, Dr. Delargy.
Well, that's why we tossed it at you.
So we can answer this,
we have to answer that.
I'm going to first ask the question I thought it was. So, students, ambassadors, if you were to continue this, what would it look like? And do you have a plan to continue it in some way? I know some of you are looking into further education. Maybe this could be a master's thesis, something in, I don't know what else other than master's thesis, because I'm very short-sighted, but do you think you could continue this either in your spare time or in your education? And if so, how?
There is no shortage of how my project could be expanded. It was 6, ASU students. It was the state of Arizona. It was a specific bill. It was specific demographics. Everything about my project can be modified to fit the needs of any community. And a big part of my project was education needs to be individualized to meet the unique needs of every single student. So likewise, research about this topic needs to be local. We can't have academic publishers creating these, works of academic art and trying to speak for the millions of students across the country, across the potentially trillions of different configurations that make up someone's academic experience. So my research can and will be expanded upon in my own way, but every single community, school, classroom needs to do this for themselves. So it's potentially limitless, at least my work.
Okay, Sarachana?
I guess for me, one of the most heartbreaking things is the fact that I graduated and I'm not going to be at ASU in the fall to implement some of the solutions I really hoped I could have if I had stayed an extra semester at ASU. But definitely this summer, what I'm planning to do is I'm working to build a mentorship program for the Afghan women to pair them with students to help support them. And I'm also working with 3 organizations, the Asian Pacific Community and Action Organization, REACT, and RISE Tutoring to implement community-based solutions to support these Afghan women based on the gaps I identified through my research. And I'm also trying to write a proposal to my pro about what systemic and administrative changes can be made to fill those gaps. I guess moving forward about what I want to do beyond college, I definitely want to work to make sure mental health is discussed more in humanitarian fields and in human rights sectors, because I feel like it's a topic that's very overlooked. And I think it's something I definitely want to implement more of on a broader sector, so that whenever people are working to build solutions for communities, they also consider mental health solutions as part of it.
Right. Okay, Mackenzie?
So that's yes, to answer the question, yes, I do plan on continuing the research. That's why I made my project into a website, because I wanted to further it. I didn't want it to just be a 6-month project, and I'm so happy with what I've done with those 6 months, but I want to continue it. And something that me and my advisor talked about a lot was creating more solutions and turning it from this is a problem to this is how we fix the problem. So I definitely plan on continuing the research.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this project was a very good reminder of everything that I don't know about this issue and the population, and kind of like Professor Fernandez addressed, that even if you're a first-gen low-income student, you don't want to just say that you're a subject matter expert or you know everything. I think that the day that I say that is the day that I should stop being a champion for people, because that just means that I'm out of touch. So yes, I hope that something that I would hope to do in graduate school is focus on maybe doing research on the parents, because in my research I came across interviews of students, counselors, teachers, administrators, but I did not find something that actually got into how parents feel about college and their kids going to college in this situation.
And just so that you know, the whole process, and I think this responds to Professor DeLarge's comments or question. This had several parts and pieces and moving parts in this. And part of this was because it was our first time. What we knew as a project team is that we wanted to provide an opportunity for students to do their own research. And the only thing that we asked was that they have social justice at its center. And for those who have been with Project Humanities for 1 month or a year or 10 years, we've been trying to frame all of our programming that's social justice specific around what we call Humanity 101. And each of these projects, that was the bar. What does this teach us about ourselves? How can we be more compassionate, more empathetic, more forgiving, showing integrity, kindness, respect, and self-reflection? So that's not just in terms of individuals, this is in terms of organizations as well. So all of these sort of center that. They're about diversity, it's about equity, it's about equality, but it's also about humanity and justice. So all of them met that bar. I think the thing that we were most sort of looking with as we go forward is, particularly for seniors, graduating seniors, that's a lot of stuff to do, because this was on top of the stuff they were already doing. And as you can see, all of these are overachievers. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but some of you have multiple majors, you're involved in community things, you've got jobs. So this was on top of that. And that was why it was so important that we give you some monetary commitment, so that it just wouldn't be for the sake of doing it. We also know that we weren't paying you, but part of our fundraising for the anniversary year through our philanthropic donations was centered around this, and not just the students, because I know that when students do that research and they show it, you don't always get a stipend for it. You do it because you can put it on a resume and it'll help you develop professionally and personally. But we also wanted to make sure that there was a part of this where your faculty mentors were at least acknowledged with a modest stipend as well. Because so many times faculty members also take on this mentoring, and while thinking is wonderful, and watching you evolve and getting involved with it's also nice to have a little monetary gesture of appreciation. So that's what this was really about, is how do we bring all those together? So I guess that was the big thing, is looking at whether or not asking seniors to do this is way more challenging and nail biting for them and for us. And we also have to build in space to acknowledge that people have lives. Some of you had some family challenges that came up, and we had to be flexible. Some of us, kind of had tug of wars about process that we ultimately worked through, which was also part of the process. But I could not be more proud of the projects that have come out of this and the ways in which you have exceeded my expectations about what this could look like. So I have nothing but mad respect for the mentors and for you for persisting when you had so many other things to do. The little stipend you get is small relative to the work that you've done, but it at least acknowledges that we recognize that this is valuable and that we see lots of potential in really making a difference and not just having this as an exercise. Did anybody else want to add anything else? Any final words, any last statements?
I just wanted to add that it was a pleasure working with the students and the professor, faculty mentors. I personally hope that we will be able to continue something like this. It's going to take some time to assess, of course, do our own research, essentially to figure out, highs and lows and what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But and I know I'm sorry to reiterate, but this is not an opportunity that is available in most places. And all these students are better students than I was, but had I been a better student and had an opportunity like this can really shape your careers, right? Because it opens your eyes to something that normal student life doesn't offer that opportunity. So I think it's really powerful, and we were just really impressed. So I wanted to thank you all personally.
Well, and I thank you, Jocelyn. And I recognize also that some of you have already talked about next steps. I mean, Yvonne, you've got things lined up and people are seeking you out, and Sayarchana, you've already got your proposal, because we asked you all to do a one-pager, because we know that's what administrators want. So just so that the audience knows, we met with the groups, we met with the mentors bi-weekly, we met with the ambassadors bi-weekly. They had forms they had to fill out so that we could make sure that there were lots of check-in points. So thanks to Rachel for creating a timeline that we talked about over and over and over again, but you all did it. And we could, as I said before, we could not be more proud. And we'd love for you to share the video with people who couldn't come. And if you need us to do any kind of letters for you as you move forward, just let us know. We are very, very pleased. Rachel, did you have anything else to add?
Just echoing what everybody else said, which is that I'm so proud of you. And this is a lot. Undergraduate research is a lot. And I think Dr. Broberg said this at the very beginning of when we all first met, was that undergraduate students are notoriously very busy and very putting a ton of stuff on their plate. And so, hey, y'all did a great job balancing everything. There might have been some times where you're like, am I going to do it? But you did. So we're so proud of you. You guys have all done such a great job.
Yeah. And now that we've completed this session, your checks will be in the mail. But we do want to thank everybody for coming. We'd love for the mentors to stay behind so that we can do a group shot, unless you already got that, Rachel. Did you get a group shot of
I did.
Of the mentors and the mentees?
Yes, I did.
Look at you on top of things again. So as we sign out, we thank you all again, but we want to remind you, we do have one more final slide so we can sort of show you that we want to continue in this vein of having these critical conversations that bring people together to talk, listen, and connect. As our inaugural showcase, this was excellent. I want you all to know, and that means you too, you're part of our team now. ambassadors. So we expect you to be an ambassador to talk about all the wonderful things that Project Humanities is doing. We'd love to see you at our programs. The summer programming begins on June 16th. We will continue with our podcast club. A podcast club is similar to a book club and a film club, where you listen to a podcast that we've suggested, and then you come in. It's facilitated mostly by students and staff. So we will have our first podcast club conversation on what is asexuality, which is part of that Two Spirits LGBTQIA. A is plus, A is not for allyship. We also have a podcast that will be led by one of our interns and her sibling on reproductive rights. Well, how hot button is that topic right now? So it is about reproductive rights. We have another intern and an ASU undergraduate leading a conversation about the unsheltered and homelessness. And then finally, to wrap up the summer, we'll have a podcast conversation on body neutrality and how body neutrality connects with body positivity and all kinds of, able-bodied, ableism, and all those kinds of things. So all of that is to show you the range of topics will still have this sort of research critical community conversation edge. And on the right side, for those who know, we have an ongoing outreach to unsheltered neighbors every other Saturday morning, 6:30 to 8:30. It's all on the website. So we are trying to do a lot. And I think 10 years is a wonderful opportunity to look back, but also to look at how we are expanding and evolving. So we thank all of our supporters out there. We ask you to sign our pledge. As we said, our issues of justice are centered around what we call Humanity 101. It is not a course and is not humanities as in discipline. It is about humanity. It's not faith-based, although some of these cross various faith boundaries, but it is a commitment to living these principles: compassion, empathy, forgiveness, integrity, kindness, respect, and self-reflection. And our hand, for those who have watched our hand, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one is the hand. Thank you all very much. Please be safe, and buenos dias. Okay. All right. Rachel, did you get pictures of our